Nearly 20 years after one of the most infamous murders in recent memory, Americans are hearing for the first time ever from a person many considered to be one of the prime suspects. Much of the nation was caught up in the coverage surrounding the murder of 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey, with some believing the young beauty queen was killed by a still unknown intruder. Others focused on her parents. Now, for the first time ever, we are hearing from the other person most often suspected in JonBenet's death, her brother. And in a sit-down interview with Dr. Phil, Burke Ramsey not only discusses the night of his sister's death, but his nearly 2 decades of silence.
I think people are reacting to the fact that you seem to be unbothered by all of this.
Yeah, well, I can tell you I was very emotional at the Fernies, and I would just randomly cry out of nowhere. I guess it's a combination of sitting in there with this weird guy that I'd never talked to before and asking me all these personal questions. It's a combination of that and just kind of, at some point you have to move on, and I'm not saying I moved on then. It might have been kind of the other end, as I didn't really get it, but you got to stop crying at some point, I guess.
Joining me now, host of Dr. Phil and co-creator of the brand new CBS show, Bull, Dr. Phil McGraw. Great to see you, Dr. Phil.
Good to see you.
So this is big because he hasn't spoken in 20 years, and this is going to be his one and only interview.
That's right. And, you know, we refer to this as a cold case because of the 20 years, but it really never got cold. This case is at the 20-year anniversary, but during the ensuing 20 years, the Internet has been abuzz about this. People have continued to focus on this, and there are major factions that passionately adhere to one theory or another. And the missing link in that 20 years has been Burke Ramsey, because he was the one person known to be in that house the night of the murder that has never spoken publicly.
She was 6, he was 9 at the time.
Right.
His parents said he weighed 60 pounds. This young girl was sexually assaulted. She had her head bashed in. She was strangled with a cord, with a slip knot tied to it. And a DA and a judge have both said it was not Burke Ramsey. It wasn't anybody in that house. And yet his demeanor was so bizarre with you, it already has people wondering what's going on there.
Well, here's the thing. This young man had a very unusual upbringing because at the very beginning, someone said to the Ramseys, the Boulder Police Department are targeting you. And so they lawyered up very early on, whereas normally you would think parents would be saying, look, exclude me, do anything you need to, DNA, polygraphs, interviews, blood tests, whatever, to exclude me so you can go after the real killers. But instead, they lawyered up and started taking a defensive posture because the Boulder police were singularly looking at them. And as a result, a siege mentality set in, and Burke was held back from the media, held back from the police, and so for 9 years, until he reached his age of majority, they held him back, and then at that point, he decided to go off the grid. And he is socially uncomfortable. He works as a computer analyst now, but he doesn't go in. He works remotely. So he still is a very isolated guy.
Do you ask him explicitly whether he committed this murder?
Well,
I know you did.
What do you think? I mean, at one point, I asked him straight up, did you murder your sister, JonBenet Ramsey? Do you believe your mother murdered your sister, JonBenet Ramsey? What did you know? What did you see? What did you hear? All the things that people are interested in. There's a boot print of a boot that he supposedly had that brand and that size right next to the body. I asked him about that, and he makes a shocking disclosure about that.
So this is an ongoing series now with Dr. Phil. He's got several sit-downs with Burke Ramsey, which you can see on the #1 rated Dr. Phil show. But this is not enough for Dr. Phil to have the #1 show and to have an exclusive like this. He also has to launch another show because he must dominate the airwaves.
Must.
And the new show is going to be based on a fascinating career that you used to have. It's called Bull, and it involves a jury consultant, which is how you met Oprah during her Mad Cow, the beef trial back in the day. Let's just watch a little clip from the show.
Dr. Bull profiles every juror, their behavioral patterns, what they click on, likes, avoidances. Then we create a mirror jury and run mock trials. It all gets plugged into a matrix that is scary in its predictive efficiency. Dr. Bull knows how they'll vote even before they do.
Was that true for you? Know how the jury will vote even before they do?
Well, there was certainly a lot of research that went into it. And what we're doing with this show is showing people what goes on in big-time litigation that they don't know about. We are pulling back the curtain. Because everybody thinks that when the lawyer stands up and he's got his 3x5 card and he or she's standing there with that, it's got name, age, occupation, that's what they know about that juror. Not even almost.
They know what your divorce proceeding looked like. They know all sorts of things.
We got pictures of your house. We know what bumper stickers are on your car. We know everything you have done for the last 20 years before you sat down.
Okay, Settle for More is the name of my book, and it is coming out November 15th. And it is based on my own life philosophy, which is based on Dr. Phil's philosophy, one of the many, which is the only difference between you and someone you envy is you settled for less, which I heard this sage say one night many moons ago, and finally the light bulb went off. I can settle for more. I can change my life, and I did.
And boy, did you ever.
So now I'm going to come on your show.
That's right.
In a big sit-down interview to promote the book when it comes out, and I want to know this. Are you going to, you're going to try to make me cry? What's going to happen?
Of course I'm not going to make you cry, but I am going to ask you important questions out of that book because you have had an amazing ride, don't you agree?
It's been a crazy year in particular.
And you took some chances that would make grown men throw up when you walked away from what you walked away from to do what you're now doing.
Yeah.
And, I mean, after everything you had done, everything you had achieved, to walk away from that to do this, that took some guts.
Thanks, Dr. Phil.
And you did it.
Honestly, it was a situation which I think a lot of people can relate to, where I was desperately unhappy and didn't really realize it. And then one night sitting there, I was watching the Oprah show, and who came on? This guy. And I was just ready to hear it. So thank you for that.
You're kind to say that. If you ever wake up and you're doing what you're doing today simply because it's what you were doing yesterday, instead of because it's what you want to be doing, man, you got to start looking at your whole card.
It's a great note to leave it on. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
See you in November.
All right.
So smart. There's always like pearls of wisdom every time. I love it.